What's up, everyone of the live stream world? And of course, if you're listening to the podcast later on iTunes, Google, all that good stuff, what is going on? Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. With that being said, I got a special guest, Jake Crain, the host of the Jboy Show. If you're from the SEC, you definitely know him. If you listen to college sports, football in general, you definitely know of Jake. Wonderful work. And Jake, it's an honor to have you on. And of course, we got a lot to talk to. But first things first, welcome to the Air Raid Tech podcast. And I don't know if it's your first time in Sooner Country, but welcome to Oklahoma.
Hey, well, no, man, I appreciate the invite. Y'all do a really good job. It's funny. I had on Mike Leach a couple weeks ago, and he actually invented the term air raid, which is, kind of come full circle. But no, excited to connect with you guys and ready for the season to get here and talk a little ball.
Most definitely. And David's been he's been a weekly guest, and at this rate, he's seems more of a co-host. He's on every week, so I shot him a text like, "Hey, David, got an opportunity for you," and he definitely hopped on. But we're definitely excited to talk some football and your thoughts, and of course the SEC expansion. Obviously, legally 2025 could be sooner, but your thoughts, the early thoughts on Oklahoma, Texas going to the SEC. Of course, being a Sooner fan, I'm a realistic Sooner fan. I'm sure you probably have seen tweets. The OU's gonna, kick ass and all this amazing stuff in the SEC. Probably not in the first few years. I would 3-4 loss season we should obviously get to. But your thoughts on Oklahoma, especially coming to the Big 12, coming to the SEC, and of course Texas, which nobody likes Texas, but your thoughts on Texas as well.
Yeah, no, and look, as a guy that covers the SEC and college football, I think if you look at it from a conference standpoint, it's a great add. I mean, you're going to get more great matchups. Yeah. I mean, not only do you add another big rivalry in Texas and Oklahoma to, the Iron Bowl and the rivalries around the conference already, but you have Texas, Arkansas, which we're going to see this year. You get to see Georgia, Oklahoma. You got Texas A&M. So from a college football purist standpoint, I love it. The more the merrier, and it's going to be really interesting. And I'd be willing to bet that Oklahoma and Texas are playing in the SEC next season.
I'm 100% with you on that one. I firmly believe. I know that Texas has $160 million from the Longhorn Network that they have to use or whatever. But I definitely know, and I do believe it's going to be next year. I don't see us waiting till 2025. I don't even see 2023. Truthfully, I definitely see next year and of course, the feel of it, I got a good friend. She's a Gator fan. She says 16's insane. Of course, you always heard the rumors, Clemson, Florida State, Ohio State. Obviously, we don't know what the future holds. I'm excited just for us to be in the SEC, first of all. It's like when the Yankees were good. I'm a Yankee fan. We're not very good this year. But when the Yankees were really good in the 90s, everybody's always dreamed to be the Yankee. Everybody's now obviously dreamed to be in the SEC. Do you see, obviously, just from a standpoint as of right now, is this the end-all, be-all for the expansion for the SEC, or could we actually see a multi-mega conference here, or the new NCAA, as people like to put it out to be?
Yeah, I don't think it's the end. I actually think this was a preemptive strike to what's going on in the landscape of college football because, look, if you get some sort of merger, and we've talked about, the Big 12 and the Pac-12 and that stuff, if you get – a merger of a super conference that has more teams than the SEC, I'm sure you're going to see the SEC respond and add more. Right now, there's obviously a plan in place behind closed doors. What that plan is, we're going to have to wait to find out, but I think this is only the beginning.
I totally agree. I think college football, I said this on many other shows in the past, that we're obviously the college football is not going to be the NFL type caliber, but I really believe that college football is about to get to that level of where the money's at. Of course, now with the NIL and so on and so forth. I think it's a mega million sport as it is. Could we actually see $1 billion sport? Potentially so. Hard in the SEC. Of course, for me, I'm glad because we get to replace Kansas and West Virginia and teams that we kind of beat up on every year in and year out to play South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Tennessee. Of course, Josh Heupel now being the head coach there. To you, what's your take? How long would you put, give or take? Would it be 3-5 years? What would your take be on when OU, Texas, one of the and/or be in the SEC championship, if that, in the first 5 years?
Yeah, and it's funny. People like to get in the time machine and go back to Missouri and say, "Oh, well, Missouri made the SEC championship, a couple times, got destroyed both
Mm-hmm.
times." But it's kind of like saying, "Oh, well, in 1975, this team did this." It's a different league than it was back then, and I make the same argument for people who say, "Well, this bowl game score was this, that, and the other." There's way more to it than that. That's like reading the prologue of a book and being like, "Man, that was a great book. I really enjoyed reading that book," instead of actually reading the book. But I'll say this. Texas has a bunch of built-in advantages. We know that, whether it's financially,
Yep.
whether it's per capita, whether it's the high school recruiting landscape. So I think their ceiling is a lot lower than what Oklahoma's is. My argument towards seeing an SEC championship and something that, obviously I know you guys know I tweeted out, I do this thing called Jake's Takes, and it got a couple views and some interested reaction. And the reason I said that, because what separates the SEC from everybody else isn't just the money and the kind of the periphery things. What separates the SEC is when you have to go through the gauntlet of the conference schedule. And people laugh and say, "Oh, well, you know what? South Carolina's a gauntlet. Look at Georgia's schedule." And look, you can take one schedule out of 14 teams and say this schedule is easier than what you made it. But it is a legitimate, outside of Vanderbilt, and I would say, South Carolina this year, because their personnel is not ready, you are playing teams that, if you don't show up, have the caliber to beat you. And it's not just offensively, it's not defensively, it's from a depth standpoint. And people will say, "Well, look at Arkansas." I'm telling you right now, you go down to Fayetteville and have to play them right after you played Bama or right after you played in LSU. It's not a walk in the park. And look, I don't want to sit here and bash the Big 12, but when you're looking at depth of conference, it's not even close, to my opinion. And you look at the NFL draft, and the proof's in the pudding. So I think that's the biggest difference when you're looking at a team coming in. Now, when I look at Oklahoma from a recruiting standpoint, Oklahoma has no problem scoring points. I don't think they're going to have a problem scoring points in the SEC, especially with the way college football is now, offensively, with so many teams being able to spread out and hurt you in different ways, and the innovation we've seen offensively. But where I think they've got to, continue to progress, and I was a big Alex Grinch guy, I thought he did a great job, is the depth on defense. Because in college football in general, but especially in the SEC, it's not about your first 22. It's really about your first 44. That's what makes the difference. And up front is what separates the SEC from other conferences, because that's where the game is won and lost. I don't care if you run the wing T, if you get an empty, you run the air raid, you run the spread, you run some sort of Hogwarts offense I don't even know exists yet. If you're not good up front, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to Mike. He kind of disappeared.
Well, it's the air raid, man. They'll sneak a tight end every now and then in there and drop one on you. So you got to watch it.
Yeah,
I knew what I was getting myself into.
Right. Now, Jake, I've got to bounce off your point about you said about the front 44. I remember watching the Army game from 2018 when Army came to Norman.
Mm-hmm.
And Army had the ball for over 45 minutes in that game.
Yeah.
And and Oklahoma's defense, you talk about gas. That's an understatement. Caleb Kelly set a new school record. I don't think that'll be broken. I think he had like 31 tackles in that game. And OU became the first and only team to win a game when they had a possession for less than 15 minutes total the entire game. So you're talking about, when you have a deep defense, you can have guys that can come in and fill in while the other guys get Gatorade, massages, whatever's on the sideline, then going back in. when your first team defense steps off, you don't have depth. The other team's going to take advantage and step on the gas, and you're going to be gone.
Yeah, especially now with all the up-tempo offenses that we see. I mean, that's half the key. A lot of people think that the main reason people run up-tempo is to catch you in base, and that's a real thing, and defenses, like they always do, have caught up and adjusted. But they want to get you in your second group. They want to find – because, look, it's just like anything, just like basketball, I mean, hell, even just like baseball, you talk about lefties, facing righties, and then you're trying to get a righty on a righty. It's about matchups. And if you're able to gas guys, and in the second half, you have a matchup where you feel good about, one of your top guys on the outside against a backup corner, you're going to exploit that. And if they want to go over and bracket that or double team that, well, then you're going to find the matchup to the other side and catch them with their pants down. So a lot goes into it. And look, I number one, respect the hell out of Lincoln Riley. Lincoln is, to me, a top 3 play caller in the country. What separates him is he's able to do this and that, and it means 13 different things to 11 different people from a communication standpoint. That's why so many NFL guys came in after that offseason where everybody's talking about you had 20 NFL franchises come to Lincoln Riley. A lot of it was communication. How are you inputting these signals to where, number one, we can't tell what this means every time, but you're able to do 3 or 4 different things out of it. So a lot goes into it. The difference in this league, and I will continue to say it, and Oklahoma fans can get mad at me, and Texas fans can get mad at me, this isn't a one-off deal. It's not, well, we beat Florida in a bowl game where they had 9 guys opting out, or we played Georgia and lost 52-45 in 3 overtime. That's one game. Where the SEC kills you is week 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't care if it's you're playing Bama and then Arkansas and then Tennessee. They have players that are good enough to beat you. And if you don't believe that, look at the NFL draft. The Big 12 had no first-round picks last year in the NFL. That tells me all I need to know. You look at the Natties. Because, again, in the SEC, and this is second place is like being in the Flint, Michigan Mega Bowl. It doesn't matter. It's about championships. And people say, oh, well, Alabama's the flagship team in the SEC. Well, pretty much every conference has a flagship team. But LSU's won it. Auburn's won it. Florida's won it. I think Georgia's going to win it this year. But it's those teams where, I watch Oklahoma, and they have trouble with Iowa State. Well, I can give you 4 teams right now in the SEC that are as talented from a roster standpoint as Iowa State. So, again, it's all opinionated until you look at the numbers. Lil Wayne has a great quote. Women lie, men lie, numbers don't lie. And until you're in this conference for a full season, you don't understand it. There's no way that you can understand it. And it is what it is. Now, as I said earlier, Texas's ceiling is like one of those houses they make for people they put in trees, one of those small houses. Their ceiling isn't very tall. To me, Oklahoma's ceiling is a lot higher.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that because y'all are Oklahoma fans. That's just the truth of it. Texas, people say, oh, well, Texas now has an event. Texas has had every event. Texas is the 6'2" kid in 5th grade that in Little League is throwing the equivalent of 113-mile-per-hour fastball. Eventually, everybody else catches up to you.
And Jake, you're talking about the up-tempo thing of college football. I've watched college football the last 5 years. I can't remember the last time any of the big top teams huddled on the field.
That word is evaporated.
They're in formation, ready to go. The quarterback gets the signal from the coach. They got those goofy logos on the big board. He knows what play to run. He signals to his team. They snap the ball. It's crazy.
Yeah. So we call it because you have, and again, there's levels to it. You got guys like Josh Heupel at UCF that they are going straight NASCAR speed. They are going as fast as they possibly can, doing whatever they can do to go fast. Then you have guys that run check with me stuff where you see them get up to the line and they don't snap it. Then they get the call from, which to me is the biggest waste of time ever. Like, at the end of the day, to me, it's like, sitting here trying to say, well, we're just going to try and trick you every time. Eventually, they catch up to what the trick is. So, you have different tempos, and the teams that cause the most problems are the teams that can be the most effective from the most various type of tempos. They can hurt you up tempo. They can hurt you slowing it down. They can hurt you mixing it up. That's where you see the teams that have a lot of success offensively. But again, and I will go back to it, there are a lot of teams in college football that score points. And Nick Saban a couple of years ago was like, listen, I get it. We're not beating teams 9-6 anymore. And he's smart enough to say we have to start scoring points. But throughout the course of the year, it's like, and I keep using baseball analogies, or you can use basketball. Sometimes the shots aren't falling, and you got to rely on the defense. And that happens because it's hard to get guys up for every game. I think you can get guys up for probably about 4 to 5 games at maximum get-upness, whatever you want to call it, about 4 to 5 games a year. It's those other 6 or 7 games, and typically they're against opponents that aren't as high profile as the ones you get up for, that you really have to be able to drive that nail in and finish it.
Well, going back, going back to that, and I apologize, I lost connection and had to get all that good stuff. But, going back to that, you look at the Big 12, and I totally agree with you. You look at the Big 12, especially for Oklahoma, the ceiling's high. And for any Sooner fan out there, and I had a few nasty tweets after the podcast I issued out that was titled "Boom Soon." Oh, that's when right after they lost to Iowa State and Kansas State back-to-back weeks last year. And so you look at it this way, and if OU fans are going to sit there and say, "Well, we're going to kick ass in the SEC and blah this and blah that," cool. It depends on how the pod's scheduled. You might actually do pretty well in the pod. We don't know. Depends. We don't know. But truth be known, I think OU fans should really, in Texas, but especially OU, is we have to get our minds wrapped around it's okay to have a 3, potentially 4-loss season in the SEC. Because, let's be honest, and as you mentioned, you got Georgia, you got Florida, you got Bama, A&M's, coming along with Jimbo Fisher, you got LSU, you got Ole Miss is coming up with Lane Kiffin.
It's a gauntlet. And people laugh at that word. They say, oh, it's a gauntlet. Just wait until you're in it. Like, that's the best advice I can give. You can say what you want. You can talk about dominating and all this. But until you go through it, like you think Iowa State and Kansas State is a problem, go through this schedule. Last year was an all-SEC schedule. It was basically like getting dragged in an alley and having to fist fight your way back to your car. That's what it is. And literally halfway through the season, most teams, it looks like a damn triage tent. Mm-hmm. You got so many people under there. So at the end of the day, and again, I love what Matt Campbell's done at Iowa State. I've been up there, talked at their special teams clinic. I love what Matt's doing up there. But to quote DeMarcus Cousins, this ain't a walk in the park.
Well, no, exactly.
No.
And, I got some tweets that were like, oh, you're not a real Sooner fan, blah, 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 blah. Well, no, I am. It's called being realistic. It's okay to be realistic, people.
Yeah, well, the word fan is short for fanatic, so
exactly.
You're going to get some of that.
It is. Jake, let's say that the Big 12 dissolves, and that's the other way that Oklahoma gained early by paying them $80 million or so to the Big 12 for leaving early. How should Oklahoma and Texas prepare for the gauntlet that is the SEC?
That's a great question, and I think the days of the Big 12 are numbered. It's a great question. The best way that you can prepare is to honestly keep doing what you're doing, because you don't want to go to a new conference and all of a sudden be a different person, because the team's going to feel that. Your culture is your culture. But I think what you're going to see is after you go through a year of it, you start to realize that on the defensive front and on the whole defense, you have to be as deep as you possibly can, and you cannot assume anything. You cannot take anybody for granted. Look, outside of Vanderbilt, I'll call a spade a spade. Vanderbilt, it's like the opposite of Cinderella. That they would be the only ugly stepsister in this whole deal. And I would be fine if we just did like some people do and put Vanderbilt on the raft and just push them down the river and say, good luck, you land where you land. But outside of that, the best preparation is experience. And once you experience it, and look, it's not like I'm telling you right now, I would say at least 70% of the season, Oklahoma's not going to have a problem scoring. But
No.
once you start to realize that we are not going to be able to operate offensively at the clip that we're used to operating, and we can take some defensive possessions off and do all this other stuff, then you kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit and say, okay, just like anything in life, I got a new job. I just got married. We just had kids. It's a game of adjustments. You have to recalibrate and you have to adjust. And that's what you learn from being in any new thing. And the Southeastern Conference isn't any different.
And you guys might have been talking about this when I was disconnected briefly, but where do you think Oklahoma's, of course, Lincoln Riley, phenomenal play caller, of course, playoff experience hasn't gone so well his way, but how do you think he'll fare in the SEC offensive wise? Defense obviously is going to be some issues.
I use the Texas A&M model. Texas A&M's problem was never scoring points. Really, when Missouri came in, their problem wasn't scoring points. You have to build your team from the inside out, from the line out. And if you can't stop people, you are very vulnerable. Ole Miss last year scored a lot of points, but look at their final record. You have to be a complete team, and it doesn't stop there. You got to be great on special teams. You got to be able to make field goals. You got to be able to cover kicks. You got to be able to be decent in the return game. Hell, the water boys have to be ready on the sideline. It is a full, complete team game in this league pretty much every week.
Well, most definitely. And you know what's funny is I mock Vanderbilt and kind of like I mock Kansas when it comes to football. But, Vanderbilt's got to be loving this, getting all this extra money and not really being much of a threat in the SEC.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Yeah. When I look at it, Vandy is the one team where the SEC can say, wait a minute, we have elite academic institutions. That's the only reason they're here. Like that baseball, they're phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely.
And I get that. But when you look at it, and again, I'll tell you this much, they better start. I know they said they're going to put $300 million into it. They better start caring about football, because Greg Sankey, and listen, I know he cares about all the sports, but baseball doesn't make any money really at the end of the day. And Vanderbilt, I remember with Kevin Stallings, used to be pretty dangerous in basketball. I mean, you had Luke Cornett out there, putting on a fireworks display from three, and they were tough. It was tough to go up there and win. But, that's kind of petered off a little bit. And at the end of the day, Vandy is bringing nothing to the conference except, hey, no, it's not just about athletics. We got Vandy.
Well, I know one thing, and I don't follow college baseball very well, like a lot of people do, especially around here. It's not really big, but I know one thing. OU needs to put a lot of money into the baseball program, because I'm going to be honest with you. The day we enter the SEC, I can guarantee you they're going to go winless, because that SEC in baseball, it's flat out loaded.
Oh, look, in baseball, and I'm telling you right now, in basketball, it's doing nothing but getting more dominant. Look at the draft in the NBA. The SEC made a decision about 4 or 5 years ago that, listen, we want to take over college basketball. And when the SEC makes their mind up they want to take over something, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But I tell you where I like the Oklahoma ad as well. And, again, I'm a sports lover. I love sports. Played it my whole life, coached it for 9 years, 5 at the Division I level. That's a big part of my life. Gymnastics is huge. Softball in the SEC, you talk about a war. Like you're stepping into, like Thanos versus, the Marvel characters level on softball. So Oklahoma brings a lot more than just football, basketball as well. We know the success they've had. Texas, even though they took that L to the Abilene Christian, which I thought was the worst loss in the tournament. But look, it's a great ad for the SEC. I'm excited, Oklahoma fans. While I may say I don't think you're going to win the SEC in the first 3 years, I'm excited as hell about the Oklahoma ad, because I love the matchups. I absolutely love the matchups it presents.
Well, I'm with you, Jake. I'm not going to sit here. I think OU's eventually going to win the SEC. I don't know.
They'll win it eventually. Yeah, they will.
Exactly.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah, they'll eventually win it. Don't know when. But no, I'm like you. The Big 12, cool. It's had its run. Lost Colorado, you lost Nebraska, A&M, and of course Missouri. Okay, cool. I just think OU overstayed their stay. They probably 10 years ago when they had the chance probably should have bolted, but good for them for for staying nonetheless. No, I'm excited for it because I know I mentioned to David, I mentioned previous shows as well, even Brett Gibbons 2 weeks ago. But I mean, how can you not pass up like even Ole Miss and Oklahoma compared to Kansas and Oklahoma? I mean, there's no comparison. There's just none.
Yeah, Kansas needs to click their heels together and just get the hell out of Dodge.
God, I love that. Yeah. I'm gonna use that as my clip for the audience for the thing.
Yeah, I got one for you here since we're that one better for you. So a couple weeks ago, Michael and I were chatting with was it Brett from
Brett Gibbons,
CFB News, but he was we're talking about where Big 12 schools are going to go. And I said, Oklahoma State should join the Pac-12. It just makes more logical sense. But I heard this on the radio, so I can't take credit for this. Maybe they should join the ACC. Play Virginia Tech every year and call it the Hokey Pokey Bowl.
I like that, man. I think it's good. They may all just join together, and like I said, it may be. The Alliance and the SEC teaming up to try and get all the Infinity Stones and defeat Thanos at some point. I mean, who knows what's going to end up happening with all this stuff? And look, at this point, my biggest thing with this conference realignment was that I didn't want to lose the great non-conference games we had, the Georgia, Clemson, the Alabama, Miami, the Auburn, Penn State, those. But the more I think about it is, I guess if you smush all those teams together in 2 or 3 conferences, then you're going to get the matchups regardless, and it's just going to do nothing but add good games. So I think there's multiple ways to look at it, but I do like that, the Hokey Pokey Bowl. That's something you need to write that down.
real quick, the final 3 to 8 minutes. Jake, it's early, Heisman, season, obviously before the season even starts. Who would be with JT Daniels? I got one as a dark horse for the Heisman. Would he be considered a Heisman candidate, JT Daniels, or even potential like a Alabama Bryce Young? I know Spencer Rattler's name's going to be out there, but
yeah.
Well, I mean, that's obvious.
Oklahoma's going to throw the ball enough, and they're going to win enough games to put Spencer in a position to win it. I think Georgia's going to win the national championship this year, and typically the teams that do the best, that 3 or 4, the Heisman winner is going to come out of that. So I think JT Daniels, I think he's plus 1,000.
Yep.
The last time I checked, that's just a good bet. That's a little bit to win a lot, but Spencer's going to be there. I don't think Bryce is going to win it. I don't think they're going to put him in a position to throw the ball the amount of times that he needs compared to a Spencer Rattler or a JT Daniels. So I like Spencer for your safe pick, obviously, but as a dark horse, JT Daniels I think is a good value.
Of course, next week we're doing our mega. I would say mega. It's going to be a long show, obviously, but our college football preview show. And who would be your top 4 teams in this year's playoff and national championship game?
Well, this is going to be a shocker. I would say I think Oklahoma's going to be in it. I think Alabama's going to be, or excuse me, I think Georgia's going to be in it. I think Ohio State's going to be in it. And because I do believe Alabama loses a regular season game and the SEC championship to Georgia. So I think it's going to be a battle for, I said Ohio State, I believe already. Even though I'm telling you, those first 2 weeks with a new quarterback, I mean, at Minnesota and then Oregon, if they can get through that, I think they'll have a good shot. I know they're going to win the Michigan game. I don't think Michigan can win an inter-squad scrimmage right now. But, it's a battle between Clemson and Alabama for that last one. Because, look, Clemson can lose the Georgia game and win the rest of their games and get in. So throw Clemson in there for me.
Ooh. I like that. I would say mine, but it will give it away, but I will anyway because people are like, I want to know. No, I like Oklahoma. I got Georgia. Georgia OU the national championship. I got Georgia winning it, and I'm probably like, oh my God. Well, there's the edge, the experience. It's still a grind. We've talked about this the entire show. It's the grind. When you continue to play top 25 teams week in and week out, shit, I mean, you don't have to be top 25.
And here's the thing, Mike. Here's the thing. Georgia is thirsty
Yep.
I mean, because they haven't won one since 1980. And, it's the biggest chip. It's the biggest hump that they have to get over, no pun intended, to be able to win the thing. They haven't been able to get over the Alabama factor, which I think they get over this year. But just looking at it, at the end of the day, I look at that roster, the additions they made in the defensive secondary with Tyke Smith from West Virginia, Darian Kendrick from Clemson. And if they beat Clemson game 1, that's the biggest insurance policy you can take out.
Well, and that's my next real quick question was, loser Georgia Clemson week 1. Would you still consider them in the playoff? Granted, with a week 1.
Well, it changes the margin for Georgia more than does Clemson, because I think Clemson has a much easier path to go in 11-1, even though I think Georgia does have and quote unquote the easiest SEC schedule compared to everybody else, and then they can't afford really to lose that SEC championship game, in my opinion, against Alabama. So while the winner of that game gets a huge buffer, if the loser is Clemson, I think they still get in because, look, the ACC and people can get – I just had Rhett Lashley on, who's a heck of a coach, the OC at Miami, and we talked about it. But there's nobody in that league that can match the depth and the talent that Clemson has. I mean, Clemson's like the dad playing against the 10-year-old son in the driveway. He may let him score a few points to feel good, but he's going to finish them at the end.
Mm-hmm. One quick question for you, Jake. How long do you think Alex Grinch will remain the defensive coordinator before taking a head coaching gig?
Man, Alex does a really good job, and I poke fun and saying the Big 12, saying you have a great defense in the Big 12 is like being the skinniest kid at fat camp. It really doesn't matter. But I think Alex, has done a great job, and he's in line to get a head coaching job. I mean, he's next on the block. And listen, this is a big move for him because now going to the SEC, if you can just be legitimate defensively in the SEC the first year, hell, you may land an SEC head coaching job before it's said and done.
Mm-hmm. That would be an interesting matchup should that happen. If Lincoln Riley should ever face off against Alex Grinch as a head coaching game.
Yeah, well, I hope they play on Christmas, and if Oklahoma doesn't win, it can be like how the Grinch stole Christmas.
There you go. Love it.
I'll go all day with this stuff, guys. I'm like Dr. Seuss, man.
Real quick. I know we're getting close to the time. Real quick, if honest question, if Oklahoma does not win a national championship this season, hopefully, first of all, let's get past the semifinal. We got to get strides here. But let's say they actually win a semifinal but lose a national championship. Is this their best team to actually win it this year?
Well, I look at, still being in the Big 12, it presents a lot more opportunities. Again, that they've continued to build. In my opinion, they're far and away the best team in the Big 12. So I would say this would be within the next 3 to 5 years, without a doubt, the best opportunity.
I know one thing. I'm going to say right here. If Lincoln makes a playoff and loses the next semifinal, goes 0-5, let's just say they go into the SEC next year. I don't know. He's not going to be on the hot seat.
Smart vibes from you.
He won't be on the hot seat. But man,
same thing. I'm really starting. I need to write that down because I'm starting to see some parallels in that from that way of thinking. But remember this. You don't know what you got till it's gone. And Tennessee's still chasing Phil Fulmer. USC's still chasing Pete Carroll. Miami's still chasing Eric Dickerson. Hell, Nebraska's still chasing
Tom Osborne. Yep.
Yeah. And listen, at the end of the day, Lincoln is a hell of a coach. And if anybody's going to do it at Oklahoma, it's going to be him.
I like it. I like it. And, I'm excited. I'm excited for football just around the corner. Where are we now? Less than 2 weeks now till kickoff, August 28th. Nebraska and Illinois.
I can smell the tailgates already, man. I got to tell you something, though. Real quick before I go, I got to tell you a quick story because all the Oklahoma fans listening, the first time y'all play LSU down in Baton Rouge, don't make the same mistake I did as a 15-year-old wearing an opposing team jersey. Because typically at most SEC tailgates you go to, if you're wearing the other team stuff, they'll be like, come on over, come on over, have something to eat. here's some beer, whatever. Nice to meet you. This, that, and the other. And depending on how much money you make, here's my daughter. This is her name. But at LSU, it's a little bit different. All right. I'll never forget my first trip down to Baton Rouge. Me and a buddy were walking with opposing team colors on, and there's this guy stirring this big pot, man. And it smelled unbelievable. And I'm a big crawfish boil guy. And I walked over there and was like, man, what you got in there? And this is a grown man. Like, I'm 15 years old. This is like a 45-year-old man. Looks at me and goes, man, it's my specialty. I've been doing it for 10 years. I said, what do you have in there? He goes, I got some duck sausage. I was like, man, that sounds great. He's like, well, how about you boys duck down here and get some then? So I'm just telling you, be careful at LSU. Be careful at LSU. Remember I said that. If you get nothing out of this interview, just remember I said that.
Real quick, where'd you go? Have you actually been to Norman, Oklahoma?
I have not been to Norman, Oklahoma, but I promise you I will be.
Well, if I don't beat you to the punch, wherever SEC games you may be in the near future, before you get to Norman, if you happen to get there, we'll definitely hit you up.
Definitely, but I don't want any duck sausage. You can.
Well, I'm gonna say there ain't gonna be no duck sausage.
All right. All right, man. Well, no, I appreciate it.
Not a problem, Jake. It's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you for the entertainment, and definitely would love to get you back on during the football season and talk some more college football.
Definitely, man. I appreciate you guys having me on, and really looking forward to the next time. Looking forward to the season. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the Jboy Show, where I typically put out a show almost every day. Yep. We haven't the past couple of days. I've had a lot of people freaking out, but it's because we got a big announcement coming. We're having to transition some things technologically wise, but be watching early next week because I think you're going to be blown away. We got some big stuff popping.
Very nice. And once that release, I'll be glad to share it and pass on the information for you guys as well.
For sure, man. Glad y'all are joining the con. Welcome to the family.
Hey, it's got to be
like kiss you guys on the cheek, man. I give you a hug, Italian style. Welcome to the winning team. Yeah. Hey. You can meet Blaze, Laser, Blazer, everybody we got over here in the SEC. But no, I appreciate y'all having me.
Hey, glad to be. I'm looking forward to being in the SEC, and you're the first one to actually open us with open arms. I appreciate that.
To quote Creed, with arms wide open, man. Y'all just come on in here and get it. But I appreciate y'all.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you for the fun show. Everybody, Jake Crain, the host of the Jboy Show. Give him a follow at the Jboy Show on Twitter and the Instagram. Jake, take care. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
You guys too. Be safe out there.
Will do.
All right, Jake, take care.
All right. See you, David. See you, buddy.
Oh, wow. We're still live. I don't care. I got to digest what just happened.
Wow, that was awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're still live on the live stream. Of course, we're still recording. Jake Crain, the host of the Jboy Show. I love, his his energy for the SEC is through the roof. He's excited, of course, for Oklahoma and for Texas. And David, we're 2 weeks away. We're going to keep this going. We're 2 weeks away. Your thoughts on Oklahoma's season opener, Tulane, and just what's your thoughts on this season?
I think it's going to be a marked improvement even from last year. I mean, our offense is just as good, if not better, and we've gotten a couple good transfers. I was browsing through some stuff just a little bit ago about some college football news, and we did lose our offensive line. Took a big hit, 2 big hits actually. Not Spencer. That's Creed Humphrey, the center, and then Adrian Ely. Both went to the NFL.
Yep.
But we've got some good guys coming back. We got that guy from Tennessee. I can't remember his name was the top of my head. Then we got Eric Gray from Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
We got depth running back. Everybody was freaking out over this wide receiver that had committed and decommitted. But I said he decommitted because he realized he ain't going to play. We're loaded at wide receiver. And we've got 7 wide receivers that are at least 4-star recruit. So it's that. And Spencer Rattler, he's This is his third year with Lincoln Riley. Last year was a big learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to step it up this year. The defense looks even better. The D-backs are getting taller, which is good because the receiver.
You gotta be tall now.
5'9" wide receiver. I don't know what a 5'9" dude's doing playing D-back, but Alex Grinch, I think this is his third year at defensive coordinator. So his guys are starting to come in and really make their splash. So he's making a splash in the recruiting scene. Jake nailed it. The Big 12 is the Big 12. There's no reason not to pick Oklahoma to not win it.
Well, and he made a good point. You're always going to have that one team for that one conference. Alabama's run-ruled. The SEC for the most part. Oklahoma's just completely dominated the Big 12. You don't have to go the last 6 years. You can go since 2020. They won 14 Big 12 championships since 2000. And so, no, you look at it. Oklahoma's going to be fine this year. And I love the positivity that you got to go in and be positive that OU's going to do well in the SEC. They're going to do well in the SEC. But guys, it's okay if we lose 2-3 games. 4 depends on who's the fourth team. It's a gauntlet. There's not a single team besides Vanderbilt that I would sit there and say on any given Saturday they can beat you, because if you don't bring your A game to the SEC, you're going to be beat.
Exactly. And just like in the Big 12, it's so competitive. And look what happened last year against Iowa State and Kansas State in back-to-back weeks. OU didn't bring their full 100%, and they thought they could ease up, and then next thing you know, Iowa State and Kansas State both seized momentum and walked away with upset wins. And you do that in the SEC, you're going to find yourselves down by multiple scores in a blink of an eye. And I think if Oklahoma can win maybe close to half of their games the first year in the SEC, that would be a win, because it's going to take some experience to get adjusted. And, and I think if Sooner fans, we're used to winning, we're going to have to get used to getting our ass kicked every now and then.
What's going to happen?
It is going to happen. But in the long term, he said it, that he sees OU winning an SEC championship. If we win an SEC championship, we win a national championship. So,
well, yeah.
Because, if you're the SEC champion, you're heavily favored to win it all, because you're that far above the rest.
Anybody that can go through the SEC, and it doesn't matter if you go 1 loss, 2 loss, no losses. If you can go to the SEC and win it, forget the rest of the 130 something team that there are. You're the cream of the crop, because that conference, and that's why I'm so excited. It's just that conference, knowing that week in and week out, you're not good. It's not an easy W like Kansas. It's not even though Kansas State's had Oklahoma's number the last 2 years, but in the past, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, no offense to you little brothers out there, but Oklahoma State, they're nothing, because we get to Bellum, and then you get your face beat into the ground. So, you look at the Big 12. I personally think it's done. I don't see it. I don't see it lasting much longer after this at any given second. But you never know. Maybe by chance that Commissioner Bowlesby can pull something out of his rear and survive it. I don't know. I know that the article I read this week, the alliance, so to speak, with the Pac-12, the Big Ten, the ACC, I don't know what's true and not true on that one. I just think the Big 12's done.
Yeah, they've been done. Since they lost Missouri and Colorado, Texas A&M, and who else did they lose besides those four?
Nebraska, Oklahoma, Nebraska, yeah.
They lost 4 and only gained 2.
Yeah.
And that kind of just put them on life support. And then Oklahoma and Texas going to the SEC's kind of pulled the plug on it. So it's only a matter of time before they start breathing.
Well, I would imagine. I would imagine.
By the way,
dude, I'm still on duck sausage. I'm still on duck sausage. Oh my goodness, I'm definitely getting him back on.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, it's just the Big 12's done. It's cool. Kansas, I've heard, is supposed to be announcing their trip to the Big Ten, which I kind of expect probably in a few weeks. I'm sure. I don't know. But no, it'd be interesting. The funny part is the fact that Oklahoma State's not being well attended to by the rest of the Power Four conferences.
No.
Nobody wants them. Well, let's be honest. What program besides a wrestling that I would sit there and be like, that's a good draw. That's a good draw. I just don't know if anybody. I just don't know if anybody is going to. I just don't know if anybody will. Sorry, guys, I got a comment. Dave, I got a question for you. It's from a good buddy of mine, Dan, who is the host of the Time to BS podcast. First of all, Dan, what's up? And I'm doing well. Hopefully, you are enjoying the show. And duck sausage, Dan. It's duck sausage. If you're listening to the actual podcast, that's going to be released to all podcast platforms. Just watch the rebroadcast, and you'll see what we're talking about. Duck sausage. But anyway, Dan says, David, if you could have 4 sandwiches to have for the rest of your life, what would they be?
Man, I don't know. What do you mean by sandwiches? Like 4 different sandwiches, or just whatever? Because what was gonna be shredded? I love a good smoked shredded. Throw a sauce in there, maybe a little seasoning, whatever. You gotta go with the classic BLT. What's else? And then of course your peanut butter and jelly. I mean, you're hungry, wolf down at PB&J, man, you're good to go. And then of course your fall winter classic, the grilled cheese. Those are my favorite.
I know he says this. You have an echo. I'm figuring out if it's me or if it's you. It might be me. I don't know. I might be too close to it too. Have you ever been? I know it's off topic. Have you ever been to Clark's Barbecue off of Expressway?
Oh, Clark.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, no, I heard they run out of burn every day.
Obviously, I won't say who. But I won't say what company, but for safety reasons. But my boss got us that for lunch. Was it last Thanksgiving? The brisket wasn't too bad. It was really, really good. I can't speak for anything else. But the brisket was really good. Their catfish, I think, had that too. It wasn't too bad. It was not too bad. But duck sausage, David. That's what we're going to. I don't know if I should name that the title of this show or I need to get with a good sponsor like save on whatever the stupid sponsor is. Save, get 10% off by using the keyword duck sausage.
Yeah, that's crazy. And, that's going to be one of those nice episodes. Going to be living memory forever and ever, even long after this podcast is done.
When I edit the audio, I'm gonna get the clip. I'm gonna post it where it's just that one clip playing. And I should have wrote down exactly what minute, so I don't have to literally re-listen to it, but that's perfectly fine. I'm just going to listen to it. If I have a bad day, I'm listening to it because that was pure classic.
Yeah, and you're going to have to send it to me because I've got my coworkers. I'll just get a kick out of it.
Oh, absolutely. I got that one, and I got the Kansas one.
Yeah.
I got to listen to the other part. I was kicked out that I lost connection on, so I don't know what all was said between there.
I'll fill you in a little bit. I asked him we talk about the up tempo of college football and the fact that you never see. I've been watching college football the last 5 years. I haven't seen any major teams any huddling anymore. It's all get to the line, look to the sideline,
Yeah.
play and go.
Well, even in smaller ball, the Mid America conferences and even the WAC, which is now the FCS version of it, but yeah, you don't see the huddle anymore. It's just that no huddle, and I like it. It's just, and what's funny, even in the pros, for the most part, you don't really, for the most part, you don't see many teams huddling, but nonetheless, no, it's good. We're gonna end this show.
Mike can barely compose himself right now. It's crazy.
Well, the fact that it happened in Louisiana.
Yeah,
I guess it's just because it's Louisiana. I'm not gonna get into why. If you guys know why, you kind of go with it. But only in I can just see that in Louisiana that happens, and I could see that. But
yeah, no, it's funny. This coworker and I were talking this morning before I started work. He was giving a grief about graduating high school in Arkansas, and he mentioned something about incest, and I said, well, it's cousins in Arkansas, siblings in Alabama.
Thanks, Jake. Jake from State Farm has put this episode in so many ways.
Yeah, I want to warn you. You might want to put a warning in your description. Do not listen to this podcast while driving.
I can just see it now. Once that broadcast, YouTube will send me a thing. Your video is not suited for underage kids. Well, that's good. Duck sausage.
Yeah, in fact, I gotta tell you something. Once we get off live, it's not fit for. We would already. This has famously been said. There's a fine line between family friendly and naughty. We've kind of pole vaulted over thanks to Jake. He just kind of yanked us over it. But there was a movie released about 5 years ago called Sausage Party. I don't know if you remember that.
Yep, my former coworker, who was my boss at the time, told me about that. That was
yeah. I kind of watched the trailer and I said no. And
yeah,
of course, I saw on the news that some dumbass, and I'll go ahead and use that word, took their kid to go see it because they thought it was a cartoon for kids.
And it's not.
I'm like, it's rated R for a reason.
Yeah, I didn't. I saw clips because of what he showed me, but it's not a kid movie. And if anybody that thinks it is, well, I'll just leave it. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, you don't have common sense. We're gonna leave. We're gonna leave it at that because we're definitely going on a deep end, guys. It's been a pleasure. Thanks again to Jake, the host. Excuse me, the host of the Jboy Show. And we just got so much to go. Keep on going. Of course, for Thursday, I got the pleasure of having a good friend of mine who's a really big SEC guy, especially the Georgia Bulldogs, Robert Reynolds, the host of the DGD podcast on Thursday. Of course, tomorrow night, if you're watching a live stream, of course, I got Sammy. She is the host of the Girl Who Talks Sports podcast coming on as well. So we're going to finish up this week on Thursday, hopefully Friday, even for that matter. But David, it's been fun. Any plans for the rest of your night?
Oh, nothing. Just getting ready for work for tomorrow. It's hump day, so it's all good.
We're halfway there. I'll give it that. I'll give you that credit.
Yeah.
And before we sign off, of course, I don't talk politics on here unless a special Wong Lam is listening. But nonetheless, I will say this: our prayers goes out to everyone in the Afghanistan area, Kabul especially. terrible situation that's going on over there. And my prayers goes out to all them that's affected. And I just pray for safety. It's not good, and
no, it's not.
I hope it gets better. I hope.
Yep. Me too. I echo those thoughts, man.
Yeah, I won't speak other than that on it, but my prayers go out to everybody in Afghanistan, and may God be with you all and keep you guys safe. You guys been listening to the Air Raid Attack podcast. Listen to David and I on iTunes, Google, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcast from. Live stream at Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and of course, David, have a wonderful night.
You too, Mike.
Everyone take care. We will see you tomorrow night.